What is up, YouTube? This is Teakwood1 coming at you with another video, and today I'm going to talk to you about God of War Chains of Olympus. Now, Chains of Olympus is actually a prequel to the first God of War game and was originally released for the PSP, although I only have the PS3 remastered version, and that's the one I'm going to be reviewing today. It was essentially made, I'm assuming, just to hold people over until God of War 3, which wasn't released until 2 years later in 2010. I mean, it was lauded by critics at the time. I think it still holds like a 93 on Metacritic and has since become a favorite for many fans. What do I think of it? Kind of sucks. It's not awful per se, but it really falls short of the legacy that was left by the first two games. There are some positives here, though. The gameplay, while failing to do anything new, in my opinion, is still God of War gameplay, and that's really never a bad thing. And the story's actually okay. I kind of like the fact that he wasn't just trying to kill someone in this game. It was a very different kind of story, although it was definitely the weakest story of the three at the time. And the boss fights, while inferior to the first two games, are still pretty good. My personal favorite is the Basilisk, which is pretty early on in the game, but it's still, I mean, the boss fights in this game are weaker than the other games, but even weaker God of War boss fights are still better than most boss fights. Let's get to the flaws, though. There is really flat art design in this game, which was disappointing. None of the visuals really pop like the first two games. And it's graphically inferior, but it was for the PSP, so I excuse that. But just a lack of any flair visually is pretty lame. I beat the game in like 3 hours tops, too. It's easily the shortest God of War game. There's barely any content. The story, you don't really learn anything new about Kratos here. The story's okay, as I said, but the only reason to make a prequel is to explore something we haven't before. And by the end of this, I kind of felt like the whole thing was pointless. The villains are also really underdeveloped. Not just that, but they don't feel like a threat, especially not to Kratos. And there's a real lack of weapons and magic here. You get like 2 each, and that's bullshit. It doesn't even hold a candle to the expansive arsenal of the first two games. Being made for PSP is also a bit of a disadvantage. The game just feels smaller and less epic than the first two. And that's one of the defining characteristics of God of War, so that really hurts this game in the long run. There's tons of glitches and bugs, too. That was the biggest flaw with this game, is in terms of technical problems, I encountered more here than all the other games combined. Many of them were game-breaking, which is inexcusable for a franchise as big as God of War. So, in conclusion, God of War Chains of Olympus really is the low point of the franchise for me. It just kind of blows. It's not awful, but there's very few things that would make it recommendable to anyone, in my opinion. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. It was really mediocre and very disappointing. Steve Quinton 1 signing out.